Good evening, I am Nisha Charles.
And I am Desmond Joseph.
And we are your presenters for today. Thank you for joining us for SAT TV News. Among the major developments, DOWASCO participates in workshop to reuse wastewater to reduce the effects on the environment.
Farragon calls for new education system in Grenada and the region.
New study says smoking rots the brain.
And in sports, Scotiabank Baffin State still unbeaten.
Details of these and other stories after the break.
Thank you for staying with us. Now for the details of the news. Head of Plant Protection and Quarantine Services, Mr. Ryan Ansom, previously stated that since the introduction of Black Sigatoka in July of this year, the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry implemented an integration strategy. Mr. Ansom says currently a well-known scientist specialized in banana diseases is working with them to help fight Black Sigatoka. He added that agencies such as ICA, CARDI and CARICOM have joined forces to create a regional program to fight against Black Sigatoka.
That specialist came Dominica, he spent a week, he assessed our plan, and together with the Ministry of Agriculture and key stakeholders such as DAPEX, Fair Trade Organization and farmers, what we did, we had a one-day consultation workshop at the Gallery Hotel, and we came up with a plan of action. And that plan of action was vetted. It was again discussed in Barbados at a regional meeting. So countries such as St. Vincent, Grenada, St. Lucia, and the French territories Guadeloupe and Martinique were also invited to that meeting.
In October, he also informed us that through the implementation plan, they have successfully spread a fungicide to approximately 2 acres of plantains and bananas.
As we speak, we have successfully sprayed 2,200 acres of plantain and bananas across the island. And what we have done, the farmers that have complied to the DILIFIN program and the phytosanitary measures, the Ministry of Agriculture, we went to the field, we contracted spraymen, and we sprayed all the fields with a potent fungicide called Tilt.
Mr. Ansom says this is just the first cycle. He said presently they are working on the second cycle with another chemical. They are rotating their chemicals to decrease the rapid growth of the fungus. Mr. Ansom is advising the farmers to continue the vigorous program in terms of sanitation. In October, our plantains and bananas met the requirements for Antigua, St. Kitts and St. Martin market. He also stated that because of Black Sigatoka's aggressiveness, it would take more resources to manage it. Now, Mr. Ryan Ansom says that it is costing the farmers $300 per acre a year.
So that is tremendous money. For example, it takes Costa Rica $90 million US dollars a week to control Black Sigatoka. So again, it is very expensive to manage Black Sigatoka. We're talking about you have to use a fungicide, about 10 to 12 different fungicides, and the oil. Oil is very expensive, and you need to spray the fields with oil.
Mr. Ansom is always confident with the farmers of Dominica to do the necessary cultural practices. And in more local news, taking health to the streets was the catching theme of All Saints University of Medicine Health Fair. This event took place on Saturday 24th, where many people gathered for full body checkups, eye tests, blood pressure tests, and more. In regards to blood pressure, they informed us that simple change in our eating habits, possibly in the form of a low-fat diet, is recommended, as well as an increase in our physical activity. Dean of Students Affairs Dr. Kumar encourages Dominicans to take part in this activity, which is held every 4 months.
We have a health fair today for the semester September-December, and we have it every 4 months, 3 times a year. And we invite the citizens of Dominica, whoever is staying in Dominica, to come down for a voluntary checkup. It's not that somebody is a patient, somebody is sick, somebody has a problem, but it can be even a friendly visit to have an environment of medical education.
Dr. Kuma says the main purpose is to ensure that the citizens of Dominica are healthy.
We have been enjoying the premises of Dominica. We have been enjoying the environment of Dominica, the friendliness of Dominica, and it is our strong desire that we should give back at least a little bit what we could do at the level of the students so that we get to know the humanitarian aspect and the social aspect of medical education.
What are the different things taking place today? What can patients look forward to?
Yeah, right now we have some preliminary investigation tests, kind of blood glucose estimation, BMI index, eye check, blood pressure, something like that. In fact, the details of all these are more with our health fair coordinator, Ms. Shagufta Ahmad from Toronto.
Health fair coordinator Ms. Shangufta says this is an extreme opportunity for Dominicans.
We've got a couple stations here where we are doing a history to see what's the family history of perhaps conditions, and then we're doing a free blood glucose or blood sugar test followed by body mass index, where we're also advising patients how to eat healthy, how to stay healthy. Then we've got blood pressure checks, and last station would be vision testing, just to see, how often are you getting your eyes checked.
She says she is pleased that the students volunteered in large numbers to make this event successful.
We've set up the stations. This is what we work all semester long, where we set up clinics for our students, train them how to do proper blood sugar, how to take vision testing, how to do blood glucose testing, how to advise. So this is what we learn in classrooms. Then we do clinics. Those are practicals, and now we put it all together where we're actually doing all those testings for all the patients coming in.
She believes that this is a great opportunity to get a free basic medical checkup.
The National HIV and AIDS Response Unit held its training ceremony for the recently concluded Voluntary Counseling and Testing Training course on Friday, November 23rd. More than 2 months ago, 3 people started the process of becoming clinical trainers. They had previous training where they went through a theoretical process and did clinical skills and became certified candidate clinical trainers. One of the trainers, Ms. Patricia Joseph, says this course was to support the trainers in that process, and now they are qualified clinical trainers.
The course was the training component was to have trained healthcare personnel and other personnel involved in dealing with persons for providing VCT for HIV. And it's really to use a standardized protocol that we have in use to ensure that it's a personalized, step-by-step risk reduction process.
The goals of the course were to positively influence the attitudes of the participants, to provide them with the basic training in HIV disease and counseling skills, and the knowledge and skills needed to provide the services effectively.
There was a group education component where just not the knowledge, but you were supposed to practice as well as show that you had learned in the actual clinical area. And then we had the overview of the counseling and testing protocol. And the protocol is based on the pre-test counseling session, HIV testing information, the post-test counseling session for the person who is HIV negative, and the post-test counseling session for the individual who is HIV positive.
The acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of Health, Mrs. Helen Roye, is very pleased that in Dominica we can now have our own facilitators in the fights against HIV and AIDS.
And that means to say we are going to have more persons trained. However, I want to signal an alert that most of the times, when we get trained, even yesterday I was addressing a new group we just started, a nursing research committee, and I was saying everything is guided by science. We can no longer do what we used to do before. You could have counseled persons and forget that you are a counselor, and you start to give them advice and tell them whatever, but no, whatever you're going to say to persons, it would be better when you have facts.
She hopes that the training received by the participants would translate into great customer service and that they would set an example for trainers to come.
We just had a review of our customer relations in Dominica, and we have cited, I'm now reviewing the document, and we are citing that although we have had a lot of gains, in the area of customer service, we have a lot of weaknesses, and we cannot run away from it. So I would actually urge you, especially in that field, when persons tell you what they tell you, maybe nobody else knows, so that you give the respect to the clients and be professional.
She wants this training to broaden the scope of the participants so that they think of the clients and their rights. The participants receive certificates for their completion of the course.
And in more local news, the Caribbean Water and Sewage Association Incorporated, CAWSA, kicked off a 2-day workshop on Monday, November 26. The workshop will be focusing on wastewater operations and maintenance. Workshop facilitator Mr. Alphonsus Daniel pointed out that we all need to open our minds towards what we call wastewater and see it as raw material. He said we need to take this seriously as we are faced with the reality of clean water becoming scarce. He mentioned that we have to look for ways of reusing, recycling, cleaning up, conserving, so at the end of the day there will be less dirty water to deal with.
During 1990-91, PAHO commissioned an assessment of the operation and maintenance of water treatment plants in the region. 138 of them were assessed, analyzed, visited. Time was spent with the operators. We review the operators' reports. We review first and foremost, and most importantly, the effluent quality. And regrettably, I have to report that only 75% of these waste treatment plants assessed were functioning as they should.
He said the poor pass rate of a number of facilities resulted in the poor delivering of effluent quality of suspended solids, 30 milligrams per liter among other problems, and with this there is a lot to learn. Mr. Daniel pointed out that 90% of the plant operators will say that this may be the result of they not having an input in the type of plant they received that were entrusted in their care.
I think the time has come where we have to change this. We talk about sustainability, and the politicians call those words even more than us. But for us technical people, it means something. And for something to be sustainable as a waste treatment plant, it has to be, it has to be chosen and correctly to start, right? I know of cases where waste treatment plants come in incorrect. Well, first of all, it stood there for a year and never was commissioned. And when it commissioned, you realize we received what we call a black box. We receive a black box. I continue to say in all the training programs from now on in the region, the only black box we should accept is an electronic calculator.
The workshop facilitator says many of the waste treatment plants that the Caribbean received are not what they should have received, hence the reason for constant maintenance to deal with the problems associated with them. He said if we use the waste as raw materials, we can process it to then lessen the effect of the environment in regards to clean water, as there are a lot of other benefits that can be derived. Mr. Daniel also said based on the type of treatment used, this wastewater can be converted to water for irrigation and to generate energy amongst others. He pointed out that processed sludge can be treated with then can be used to revitalize soil, especially for farming, which is having a big impact when produce need to be cultivated in very large quantities to keep up with the increase in demand. General Manager of the Dominica Water and Sewage and Company Limited, DOWASCO, Mr. Bernard Entinoff, highlighted that over the years, water resource managers have placed tremendous emphasis on fresh potable water and integrated water resources management, which are very important. He said we all have to ensure we use our water sustainably in order for it to be intact for future generations.
For many countries, we have varying methods of water abstraction. Some countries, there is desalination, reverse osmosis, and brackish water. There are countries that are now into deep well drilling. In Dominica, we are more fortunate and rely solely thus far on surface water. We still have an abundance of fresh surface water of good quality, and we are very, very proud. It's something that we are proud of. But we recognize that there is need for improved management and continuous management of those water resources if we are going to use it sustainably. One of the things that Dominica, like I believe many other countries, have not emphasized as we should have is the issue or the business of management of waste and wastewater.
He said most of the emphasis was placed on potable. However, the management of waste and wastewater is equally important, as how we have managed such can have a lasting effect on our potable water resources. Mr. Etienne says for those countries like Dominica who depend on fresh surface water, if we pollute the environment, it will then pollute these freshwater resources, and as a result, a lot more money has to be spent to treat the water to make it potable.
The countries that rely on groundwater, you pollute the environment, you're going to pollute your groundwater resources, and you're going to have to be digging deeper wells and more wells all the time. And of course, not minimizing the impact on our social water, the marine environment. So there is need, of course, for how we manage and how we maintain our wastewater and wastewater plants. And it's something that we must give more emphasis within the region. I therefore want to applaud CAWASA and its partners, GTZ, that's the German Technical Corporation, and the Caribbean Environmental Health Institute, for putting together this very valuable course and selecting a course facilitator, in my mind, who is competent, well-qualified, well-experienced to deliver this course, Engineer Alphonsus Daniel, who has had tremendous experience throughout the region.
He says he hopes all the participants will make the best of this vital workshop.
And Monday, November 26 was a special day for the organization as they hosted their 25th annual general meeting. The Dominican National Council of Women, the DNCW, held their AGM under the theme Women, Agents of Social, Economic and Political Development. President of the DNCW, Mrs. Josephine Dublin Prince, stated it is usually said that the situation of women and children can be considered an indication of the health of any country, and as a result, the challenges faced by a family in their socio-economic situation should be of grave concern to the DNCW.
We are definitely concerned about a rise in the sexual offenses against minors, the bullying that continues to go on in school, the new face of the perpetrator, young girls becoming the perpetrator in some cases. We are also concerned upfront about the recent poverty assessment statistics, which pointed to young women engaging in transactional sex to quote-unquote feed their children or their family. We say to them that there is another way. They need to get involved in more healthy practices. They need to get involved or access adult education programs. They need to empower themselves and yet be an agent for change. But we call on the authorities to respond seriously to such appalling statistics.
She said the abused children will grow into women and will be those who need to get support from a crisis center. Mrs. Prince said now is the time for more young people to get involved with the movement and also sounded the call for additional volunteers. She said despite the issue of limited resources, they have to continue to make a mark in their own national development. The DNCW has carved a niche in small and medium businesses such as craft, agriculture, and agro-processing, among others.
During the months November 25th to December 10th, the Dominican National Council of Women again continues, as we are doing within that period, to bring to the fore the awareness that violence in any form, in all its forms, must be stopped. We continue to bring to the public the message that they too need to assist in reporting cases of violence at the level of their home, within the community. We also want to continue to say that victims themselves must break the silence, and we need to continue to support the parents who sometimes remain silent when they see such action against their own children being done.
Minister for Social Services and Gender Affairs Honorable Gloria Shillingford pointed out that the theme, Women Agents of Socio-Economic and Political Development, is reflected in the aims of the DNCW, which speaks to the empowerment of women. She says this is important so women can realize their full potential and play a vital role in national development.
Also, I know that your AGM falls within a period when we just observed other significant occasions related to women and families, namely International Men's Day and Children Universal Day, which placed strong emphasis on bringing an end to violence against all children. The 16 Days of Activism campaign also against gender violence, of which you are a staunch partner, was launched on the 23rd, just Friday gone, and so your AGM falls right into the activities.
Mrs. Schullenfarb highlighted that these activities, following one another so closely, sends a positive message about the efforts that are being made by different agencies, both individually and collectively, to raise consciousness on the importance of human rights. She said these include matters particularly those related to women and families. Mrs. Schullenfarb said, however, while the focus is on women, there is also work on eradicating all forms of violence which can be deemed an infringement on human rights.
As the umbrella organization of all women's groups in Dominica, the DNCW has been working in close collaboration with the Bureau of Gender Affairs in advocating for the rights of women and families in Dominica, and has been involved in the implementation of programs and activities for its constituent groups across the country. The Ministry of Social Services, Community Development and Gender Affairs is very appreciative of your efforts and partnership with the Bureau of Gender Affairs. Indeed, government is always thankful when other agencies offer partnership in matters impacting the nation. This was articulated in the 2012 Independence theme, Partnering for Further Progress and Development.
Mrs. Schullenfarb says in keeping with the theme, she is looking forward to the continued collaboration of the DNCW in the upcoming 16 Days of Activism campaign against gender violence. The minister said we cannot lessen our efforts in letting the world know that discrimination and violence are wrong, and in doing so we have to be steadfastly committed to the cause.
And in more news, this week the Goodwill Primary School is celebrating Boys Awareness Week. A week of activities has been planned according to the principal of the Goodwill Primary School, Miss Miriam Lewis.
This week we are focusing on Boys Week. Actually that will be last week, but because we have a top pack program, we thought we had to put much quality to it. So for this week I feel much more comfortable. And today we have the real opening under the theme, aspiring to be real men. So we the boys are real men. Our school has a population of 600 at the moment, with almost 300 being boys, or 325 being boys. So it's a heavy population area of boys. So
she said the aim is to focus on all the boys, their problems, struggles, strengths, and weaknesses.
Now, based on where they come from, our environment, and I mean, it's not only where they come from, every Dominican experience where boys feel marginalized. We thought of focusing a lot on the boys themselves, and so the entire week will be based on the boys. So for today is a real opening. Tomorrow we'll be having a haircut day where they'll come in and cut their hair. Tomorrow afternoon is a PTA meeting for men, and we're having some motivational speakers with them. Also on Wednesday there'll be a movie night where they're going to have it's a film called Courage. So the father has to come with the son to the school, and then just to get that interaction. On Thursday we'll be having basically boys will be having a chef day where they're going to cook. Some will be showing what skills they can display. Basically it will be a whole week of fun. It will end on Friday with an exhibition.
Education Officer for the Western District, Miss Margaret Jules Royer, says that events such as this brings a form of joy to her heart.
Well, just to say, as education officer, I am so elated that this is a brainchild of mine, and when I said it to the principals in the Western District, they just really went with it. They just ran with the idea. And last week, as Mrs. Lee said, was already the Boys Awareness Week, but Goodwill Primary couldn't have celebrated last week, and so they did it this week. And going around the district, I just feel so good about the empowerment which the boys have gotten from the various activities which the various schools in the Western District has done.
Ms. Royer goes into further details of Boys Awareness Day's activities.
So we had things like Crazy Tie Day, we had Building Day, we had the boys getting involved in assembly, and We had Belle Marché. So for instance, Maho walked to Campbell. I went on the walk with them. On Friday I gave them a very big surprise, and that was so good. And then they had sports. It was just very, very empowering and very good. And we also had other schools where the children actually made things like the various trucks and the Bedford truck and all kind of things like at Massac and so on, and many other schools we had.
Ms. Roy stated that something needed to be done to focus on the males, and as long as she is the education officer of the Western District, there will be other activities such as this. And in more local news, one family is still in a state of shock and mourning after losing their 4-year-old son over the weekend. Acting Police Public Relations Officer Inspector Richmond Valentine has the details.
Police are conducting investigations into the death of 4-year-old Rahel Morancy, the son of Erasmus Morancy and Annette Defoe of Geneva Housing Scheme, Brentwood. On Friday, 23rd November 2012, at about 7 a.m., Rahel left inside the house where he was with his mother and went outside with his 9-year-old sister Abigail Morancy. He entered a cellar and there held on to an extension cord which was at the time electrified, and he subsequently fell. His unresponsive body was taken inside the house by his sister Abigail.
From realizing what happened, his mother then rushed him to the Grand Bay Health Center, where he was pronounced dead by the doctor on duty. The body of the deceased was transported to the funeral home pending a post-mortem examination. Investigations into the incident continues.
And 2 of the 2013 Miss Dominica Queen contestants were launched on Saturday, November 24th. The contestants were Miss Kelcher Breezy of St. Joseph and Miss Fatima Noel of Saint-Sauveur. At the first stop in Saint-Sauveur, a huge crowd welcomed Miss Noel along with her and her other contestants. Events coordinator at the DFC, Miss Natalie Clark-Mead, says these launches are very important for the Queen contestants to have a network of support and a sense of belonging.
When I see this happening and I see the representation and the strength that comes, the network behind Fatima and the other representatives as we move around every weekend to a different space in Dominica, it really blesses me, and I thank you for the support to DFC.
Representing Good Hope, Saint-Sauveur, and Petite-Soufrière, Galion-Soufrière, and Scott's Head, Miss Fatima Noel is proud to be representing her communities. Her platform for Miss Dominica Pageant 2013 will be paternal absenteeism.
I feel strongly that it is time for fathers to take up the rightful roles as head of the household, accept responsibility for the children, and set an example that they can follow to become productive members in our society. Fathers, we need to let our children know that you can be counted on to always be there. I urge you to join me to ensure that our children are given the care and attention they deserve from a strong male figure in their lives.
The train moved on to the village of St. Joseph for the launch of Miss Kelcher Breezy. She represents the village of St. Joseph and aspires to be a radiologist. Her platform is breaking psychological poverty.
We may be labeled an underdeveloped or developing nation, but there is nothing undeveloped about our hearts and our minds here in St. Joseph. We may not be financially affluent, but let me tell you that we are rich in ethics, we are rich in standards, thoughtfulness, effort, culture, patriotism, and most of all, St. Joseph is rich with love. Have you heard the song that T.I. sings with Rihanna, where he says, stop looking at what you ain't got and start being thankful for what you do got? Well, that's St. Joe.
The parliamentary representatives for both constituencies, the Honourable Kelva Daru and the Honourable Johnson Drago, were present to support their contestants. The other contestants will be launched every week leading up to the actual show in February 2013. The DFC is calling on Dominicans to come and support our fellow Dominicans. And in court today, a number of persons were charged for receiving stolen goods. Kessler Alcender of Tarish Pete pleaded guilty to receiving 16 bottles of Kubali beer, knowing that it was stolen. The incident took place on November 18th at Riverbank. The items belonged to 73-year-old Zena Lavinier, who had left her home on November the 18th to go to church. When she returned, she saw the door of her laundry room was opened and that the 16 bottles of beer were missing from the crate. She made a report to the police. On November the 22nd, while investigating a different matter with Charles Francois, he gave information to the effect that he had entered Mrs. Lavigne's home and took the bottles of beer and gave them to Mr. Alcindor. The police launched a search for Mr. Alcindor, and upon finding him, they informed him of the information they received. When asked where were the beers, he said that he had drank them. Mr. Alcindor was then arrested. Magistrate Evelyn Baptist is deeply concerned about these kinds of offences and as such fined Mr. Alcindor $1,400 to be paid by the 30th of April 2013 or spend 7 months in prison. In related news, Nola James Peter of 22 Kings Lane has been charged with receiving stolen items. In court, it was reported that she had received items including numerous gold jewelry and some spirits amounting to $48,871. The prosecution objected to bail, stating that investigations were still ongoing to recover some of the items, and as such they would need more time to carry out investigations. Bail was denied and the matter is adjourned until the 3rd of June 2013. And in more, Rosa Rodriguez of Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, had a sigh of relief after she thought she could easily pay her fine after pleading guilty to buying a stolen bottle of amaretto. When the sentence was passed down, Ms. Rodriguez burst out of the court screaming with gladness, only to be called back to the court to spend some more time in incarceration for disturbing the honorable court. The defendant had pleaded guilty to purchasing a stolen bottle of amaretto wine on the 21st of November 2012. The complainant, Wayne Nordy, and his family had left their house on that day around 7:20 a.m. and left for Roseau. Upon returning, they noticed their house was broken into and the bottle of wine was missing. They made a report, and on the 22nd of November, after some investigation, Charles Francois was arrested and taken to the Criminal Investigations Department. Upon questioning, Mr. Francois admitted to breaking and entering their home and taking the bottle of wine and selling it to Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez was then arrested. Today, after her outburst, after her sentence, she was placed in holding for some time for her disregard to the respect for the courtroom. She is to pay $1,500 by May the 31st, 2013, or spend 6 months in prison, and also pay compensation to the family of $87 by the 21st of December 2012, or spend 1 week in prison. This has been the local segment of the news. Coming up next, regional highlights.